But then there are some teams who have not fared so hot this season and the season past. And who do we look at when the college football teams don't do so hot? Their coaches. So we're going to be taking a look at a coaching hot seat in college football. We've broken it down for you guys. We have in Fuego. Their seat is on fire. Their butt might as well be burned off already. We have still warm. You know, we're not quite ready to pull the trigger on them getting fired yet. But at the same time, you know, they're definitely kind of on the radar. And then we have a won't get fired, but we're kind of raising some eyebrows at y'all. Like, this is not going super hot and not going in the right trajectory. So let's go ahead and take it first to the won't get fired, but, you know, you're not doing so hot. So we have all these coaches here. Kevin Sumlin, you know, he's in his first year at Arizona. Scott Frost, he's at his first year in Nebraska. Chip Kelly, first year at UCLA. And they're not starting off their tenure at these great programs on a hot note.
Yeah, I mean, the one that I want to kind of focus on here is Chip Kelly. When you go to a, is that record right? I don't know if, is Arizona 1-3? We'll have to double check that. But when you go to a school like UCLA, when you could have taken the job at Florida, when you could have maybe gone back to your alma mater at Oregon, they had a job available. When you do that and you start off with such a poor record, I think that the Chip Kelly one might be off too. I think they've got more than 2 losses. But nevertheless,
they haven't won.
Chip Kelly is one that I think is really surprising.
Well, I want to take a look at Scott Frost. That's the one that's really, really surprising to me this season. You know, UCF, they went undefeated last season. Scott Frost also had a tenure at Oregon, but then just 0-3, James. I mean, not even putting up a fight against so many of these teams. I mean, what happened? What's not clicking for Scott Frost? Is it the Big Ten? Is it bigger competition for him? Or what do you think it is?
So I think what's happening with guys like Chip Kelly and Scott Frost and even Jimbo Fisher, he's got 2 losses already against maybe the 2 best teams in the country in Alabama, in Clemson. When that happens, what is kind of doing is coaches like Jim Harbaugh, who took a lot of heat after that Notre Dame loss, and some others that have been around for a few years that haven't maybe won conference and national titles, it's actually making their jobs a little bit easier because Chip Kelly and Jimbo and Scott Frost were these guys are program changers. These guys are going to change everything. And combined, they've got, I think, 8 losses already between those 3 coaches, with Nebraska being 0-3. I think, what's UCLA? What's the record? There's something like 0-3, 1-3, whatever it is. Too. And with Texas A&M already having 2 losses, really good losses, but nevertheless, is a coach like Jim Harbaugh had 3 losses his first year. Urban Meyer went undefeated his first year. They were not eligible for it, but it kind of makes you respect what some of these coaches who can go 10-3, 9-4, 11-2 year after year, what they do. When a Scott Frost, who everyone thought was going to be an instant impact, Nebraska's back kind of guy, when Chip Kelly can barely get a UCLA team to even move the ball half the time.
Well, we have this weigh-in for you guys, and I want you to chime in, James. So how many games will Nebraska actually end up winning this season? Now, they dropped one to Colorado. They dropped one to Troy. They dropped one against Michigan. They're taking on Purdue, which, you know, just had an upset last week. Got Wisconsin, Northwestern, Minnesota. I mean,
do they play Rutgers?
They do not play Rutgers.
Okay, so I've got them maybe 2 wins. I've got them as maybe 2 wins, which is we got Purdue this weekend and then Illinois, I believe. Right? They've got them. So other than that, could they go 2-10 or I guess 2-9? I'm not sure if they're going to play that Akron game that was canceled, but nevertheless, they are going to struggle this year. And Scott Frost can go into next season like, whoa.
Well, they did get a different game on the schedule. They're going to play Bethune-Cookman instead, so that's a win there. So, you know, maybe you get to 2 or 3 or something like that.
But regardless, he's not going to get canned this season, right? Like they're gonna let him get a couple more chances.
He's going to find his way to get back because it's been a mess. But I don't really fully blame Scott Frost quite yet, James. Even though I know he's been bad.
So here's the thing: is Scott Frost is much like Paul Chryst at Wisconsin, Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. They are the quarterback or the returning champion, the guy coming home to save the program. Not necessarily as much as Wisconsin's case, but they are going to get the longest leash. Those three guys, because who else would you get? It's a guy that everybody else wanted, or maybe not in Paul Chryst's case. But if you're one of ours, you get a longer leash than if you're a guy like Willie Taggart coming in and being a disaster with no real ties to the program.
And we'll talk about that later in Willie Taggart and what's going on down in Florida.
Look at this really quick one more time, Lena. We got the records fixed. Scott Frost and Chip Kelly, had you said, we're sitting here towards the last few days of September, and those guys are combined 0-6. 0-6. Kevin Sumlin, 1-3. Those guys right there, 1-9. 10% of their games they've won in the first month of the season. That is crazy for all 3 of those guys. were seen as big-time home run hires for the schools they were at. Certainly better and bigger than the coaches they had prior. So this is really surprising.
All right, before we continue on talking about some seats that are definitely a little hotter in college football, just want to remind you guys, head to chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code CFB120 and win some cash right now. I mean, you get free cash when you sign up. You can win some cash. We have the best odds on the internet, so get it done at chatsports.com/bet. All right, let's take it to the still warm, so not quite ready to be canned yet, but we're definitely raising some eyebrows. Lovie Smith, he had a tenure in the NFL, didn't go well.
Don't know why Illinois hired him.
Don't know why Illinois hired him either. We have Paul Johnson from Georgia Tech, followed by Bobby Petrino, which no Lamar Jackson. This Louisville program has just fallen to shambles.
Well, I'm not surprised by that. I said this from the beginning. I said this last year, James. Once Lamar Jackson left, Petrino was going to get on the hot seat because they weren't going to be all that good. I'll also make note of Paul Johnson. He's something like 1-7 or 1-6 in his last games against FBS opponents.
Petrino's
That's bad.
a curious case. I mean, he really is a good coach. I'm surprised that he has been able to put together a better defense. Lamar Jackson was certainly a game changer for him, a Heisman Trophy winner, but he's got to find that next Lamar Jackson to take it over.
I don't think
Smith,
I think
he is going to be – I mean – who are you going to get better than Lovie Smith? Illinois is just where coaches go to die. And Paul Johnson, of these three, I think, has the most likely odds. He's been there for 9-ish years or so. He's kind of getting stale. They've had a couple of New Year's Six level bowl games. Then they kind of followed up with a 5-7 season, 3-9 a couple of years ago. I think this may be his last year unless he gets 7-8 wins out of his pulls out of his butt.
I want to take it to what everyone's talking about, and that's Willie Taggart. Now, Willie Taggart, I think, has arguably been maybe the biggest disappointment of college football. New coaches this season. Yeah, they have won a game, but oh my gosh, I mean, Florida State came into the season ranked number 19 and then just absolutely crapped a brick. I'm not going to say that word, but just, I can't believe this Florida State program. You lose Jimbo Fisher. It's never easy when you lose a coach like that. But, I mean, Willie Taggart can't even hold a flame to this guy.
It's weird. I don't think they'll fire him because I think they'll maybe win like 4 or 5 games. But I tried to tell some FSU fans about this beforehand. The first year under Taggart outside of Oregon has never been good. It's been like 3 wins.
Florida, he was kind
South
of
Florida,
he was
Western Kentucky. It was
like
bad.
His third year they came in and they started doing well. So we will see. I say no, because it's very rare a coach ever gets fired in any sport after 1 year. They'll give him more than that. They've probably got a pretty big buyout. We have to check on that bad boy. But they have been a disaster. They have been awful, Florida State. And if they win 4 games, I'm not going to be surprised at all. I mean, I don't see them winning 6, 7, 8 games at this point.
Maybe.
Not
at all. But
maybe Jimbo did leave it in a really bad spot.
Maybe.
All right, so here are our top 5 seats. They're in Fuego. Their butts are burning. Rutgers, Chris Ash, Willie Taggart of FSU, Larry Fedora of UNC, David Beaty of KU, and then Clay Helton of USC. If him and JT Daniels can't get it done, I think he is out with the Trojans.
I am surprised that Chris Ash has not been fired yet, James, because he lost to Kansas
that's
in a blowout.
That's pretty bad. Every time they
Fold
go against
the program.
Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, they're suffering 60, 70 sometimes point losses. That he has not been able to put together. I believe it's year 3 for him, maybe year 4. I don't think he's getting it done at Rutgers. No one can get it done, but Greg Schiano did get it done.
Bring back Schiano. Bring back Schiano.
You never know. But all these guys, I think maybe 2 or 3 of them are at least going to get fired this year for sure. I think Helton and Ash, for me, are the ones that are most likely as I stand now. Beaty, you never know, because they might say, what else are we going to do?
I think Helton might get 1 more year because JT Daniels is so young.
Yeah, we'll
I
see.
think they might get him a little bit of a credit there.